Hello, everyone. It's about time to start, but I think we have a few more folks popping on, so I'm just going to wait a quick moment, see if anyone else starts. But welcome to this session on time and stress management. Hopefully, you all will get something out of this. There's one or two names on here that I'm not familiar with, so just to introduce myself. My name's Eric Nussbaum, and I'm with the Soil and Water Conservation District program at ODA. My job is to do trainings like this and help districts in general operational issues of various sorts. My background is that I used to manage the Soil and Water Conservation District many years ago. Did that for 7 or 8 years before moving to ODA as a water quality specialist. After about 5 or 6 years of that, I did move into this position, which I absolutely love, helping districts do the best they can and helping the staff and the managers and the board. So a few housekeeping things before we start. Please mute your microphones and or telephone, or I'll do it for you if you don't. Unless, of course, you're asking questions, then you can unmute yourself. One of the best ways to ask questions is in the chat box. I will be monitoring it. And I really like people to ask questions and interrupt me. I think that's where you get the most out of these sessions. And there is reference materials. I did make some worksheets and information sheets available, as well as the PowerPoint presentation will be on there. And hopefully by the end of the week, this recording, at least a link to the recording, will be on there. It'll probably be on YouTube on a private link, but you can find the link for it there. As with anything about time and stress management, there's so much information out there. There's all sorts of different methods for time management, getting things done. The GDT, as it's called, and prioritization and everything like that. And for stress management, well, that's huge. There's volumes, books and books written on stress management and time management for that matter. So I just decided on a couple short things, because we only have an hour here. We'll spend about a half hour on time management, a half hour on stress management, and they're related. Some of it may resonate with you. Much of it may not. Hopefully, some will. Hopefully, you'll find one or two things that might be of interest to you. I would encourage all of you, if you're interested in this, to do a little research on your own and find out what, really resonates with you. But hopefully, you will find something that resonates with you today. A lot of this information is based on information that I got through a manager's training for the state. They had some great ideas. I have actually done this for district managers about 4 or 5 years ago, and none of this is repeating that. I actually thought of all new things, or got more information. So hopefully, as I said, you will find at least something like that. So, all right, a little bit of hopeful little participation here, just to kind of get us going. If you could put in the chat box what's stressing you out these days. The common one that all of you will probably put down is not enough time to get everything done. So someone can put that down. But if you have any other things, so let's see what you have by putting in the chat box. The last session last Friday with the managers, they did a great job of filling up that chat box. We should try to fill it up with some too. Everyone's shy today? No one has any stress. I can just turn this off and we can go. All right, great. So, yes, trying to juggle with the kids, not in school while you're working at home, that's huge. New materials with deadlines. Teleworking with sudden office closures, yes, and everything goes along with teleworking. Deadlines, yep, not enough time to meet them. New position, not being familiar with duties, multiple grants due at one time, trying to organize. Great. All right, if you think of any more, go ahead and put them in there and share them with everyone else. So the first thing I want to do is talk about the 3 types of stresses. The first type is situational stresses. So situational stresses are like marriage, divorce, moving, vacation. You may have seen, every now and again you see them online, or these tests where you say all these changes in your life and you score them and you add up the score to see how stressed you are. Those are the basic like situational stresses. Injury, essentially any kind of change, including positive change, like a better job is still a stress. So we're going on vacation, it can be very, very stressful, as well as moving or injuries or holidays too. So that's one kind of stress. Second kind of stress is physical. So that's dealing with your health, how much sleep you get, what kind of exercise you get or not get, what you eat, are you able to relax or not, kind of how happiness in the home and work life, how that affects you physically, your sleep quality and quantity, how much drinking you do or don't do, things like that. So the physical stress on your bodies. And then you have emotional stress. So, your happiness level, things like, do you feel that you enjoy your job? Do you feel that you enjoy new things? How do you respond to change, the situational change? How do you respond to that? Do you feel like you're making a difference in your life? Do you have folks you can talk to about things like that? So those are emotional stressors. So thinking about these 3 types of stress that you have in life, we're just going to go over a little bit about coping strategies for each of these for you. If you want, you can write them down, but in the handouts that you can find online, I do have them listed here for you. So, and you can find those on the ODA website under the SWCD program, and then there's a whole tab on trainings, so you can find those there. So how do you deal with situational stress? So one of the best ways to do that is organization. And we'll talk under time management issues. We'll talk a little bit about organizations, but there's lots of ways to organize. But essentially, if you can organize yourself, when everything gets stressful and busy, you have something to keep you on track and not forget the important details. So that's like books and books on organization. But if you can find some way to organize yourself when you have all these changes happening, it would help ground yourself and keep yourself on track. Another coping strategy is to have a purposeful vision for your life. So when you get overwhelmed, you get discouraged, you get extremely stressed out, you kind of have that vision about where you want to go, what your guiding principles are, and that can help you with your decision making and keeping yourself grounded. This is very similar to districts. Most of you do have a district vision that helps guide your district, especially when you're figuring out new things to do or things get very challenging at the district. Having a district vision is important. And the same with having a personal vision in times of stress. Supportive relationships. Staying connected with people who are just purely supportive of you and your current situation. They don't judge you. They don't try to tell you what to do. Maybe they give advice if you ask for it, but mostly what they are is just supportive. They could be, close friends of yours. They could be colleagues. These days, online support groups are great. Anything that helps bring you support in a non-judgmental way. And then finally, daily rituals. Developing and maintaining a daily ritual that will give you a sense of stability when all these changes are occurring in your life. So another, again, grounding. And rituals can be as simple as the way you do your morning cup of coffee and read the news, or going out for a lunch walk every day. Anything you do that's kind of soothing and calming, and it's a ritual, so it has this real sense of grounding for you. So take a look and think of some easy, simple rituals you can do every day and incorporate into your day. Something in the morning, something in the midday, something in the evening. Are we doing okay? Any questions? Don't see any yet. So, all right, physical coping strategies for dealing with physical stress. Well, the first one is hopefully fairly obvious, but eating well and exercising. Not that you need to feel like you have to, go on huge diets or make huge changes to your eating, but try to eat well, eat consistently, and get some exercise. Not, go to extreme versions of exercise, but like that daily ritual of taking a walk. Some way to move your body, put good food in your body, and feel better. Second one, again, it's obvious, but this is dealing with physical stuff, is trying to get plenty of rest and sleep. Self-care is really important to relieving stress, and you want to make sure you're both getting quality and adequate sleep. When you're time crunched, that seems hard and everything, but studies have proven again and again, getting adequate sleep helps with so many things. Not just stress, but how your body functions, how you're able to cope with change, body weight, all these things sleep really helps you with. So trying to make that a priority in your life is really important. Naps are great. Even just a few minutes of napping is great. Just a few minutes of downtime somewhere. I'm a big believer in naps. I see a question there or a comment. I will get to that in a minute, Susan. I'm a big lover of naps. Sometimes at lunch, I just go and lay down, even if you don't even fall asleep, but you just kind of like lay down or sit in a chair and just take a few minutes of downtime in the workday is really, really helpful for physical stress and also emotionally stress. And one of the things is that you may not think you have time to take any rest or time for a little short nap. But study after study has shown that if you even take a very short break and get away from what you're doing, when you come back to the work, you'll actually be more productive and get more done in the long run than if you just kind of work straight through. So, as especially the managers know, by law, you have to have those 2 15-minute breaks in an 8-hour day and your 30-minute lunch. Most of us tend to work right through them. And I'm going to say here, and I will say it again, under time management, actually, it's better if you take those breaks, get up and walk away from the desk, especially if you're, working at home and you're, stuck at home. Just go out, stick your head outdoors or something, because in the end, besides making you feel less stressed by taking that break, you will get more done. Your productivity actually goes up, and you're able to accomplish more than you would. All right, so Susan, you had a question. Keeping relationship intact while dealing with COVID restrictions, concerns about spreading COVID to others. That's really good. And question, like, how do you, I'm assuming your question is, how do you do that? That is challenging, but different ways, do the best you can. For myself, and then actually I'll ask if other people have ideas, type them in there, how to keep relationship intact during this time. There are online communities that can help. They're not the same. Trying to do distance visiting. I know that the managers were talking about some ideas about this. And at least one district, they encourage the staff to meet in field visits, where it's outdoors, where people can keep distance. But that's how they actually try to keep some interaction between the staff, is by going out and doing field visits. And I thought that was a fabulous idea. So, and I do it too, taking walks, where you're keeping separate and everything while you can. Plus, taking walks actually helps with the exercise part too. Does anyone else have any ideas about how to keep relationships intact during this time? Because certainly it's really hard. the number of relationships that you really can keep going tend to really shrink during this time. If anyone has any ideas, just go ahead and type it in the chat, and then I'll get back to it. The last thing about physical coping strategies is goals. So having goals will help you remember what your priorities are when you're under stress, and that can give you a compass when you feel uncertain about where you're going. Again, you can relate this to the district's vision and goals, which help the district focus and have a compass, but also you can. And having those goals will relieve some of those stress. So I encourage you to think about kind of those goals. Emotional coping strategies. So dealing with emotional stress. So building your self-esteem. And there's books and books that are written about this, but essentially it's trying to change your negative thoughts into positive thoughts. There are many ways to do that. I'm not going to try to get into it now. You could probably Google it and finding it, but really just trying to change negative thoughts to positive thoughts, whether it's through a mantra, or just things you say to yourself. That will really help with your emotional stress. Develop assertiveness. And we're not talking about aggressiveness here. We're talking about this balance between passivity and aggressiveness, where you're learning to maintain your own rights, needs, and feelings while maintaining the rights, needs, and feelings of others. So that's a balance there. And by doing that, you can find, you'll be less stressed out emotionally because hopefully you're being heard and people are hearing you, which gets to the third one, which is clearly communicating expectations. Believe it or not, people can't read minds. And a lot of times there's a lot of miscommunication that causes emotional stress. It's easier said than done to communicate your expectations, but always strive to let people know what you need and expect from them, and vice versa. Hopefully folks will tell you what they need and expect from them. So that would relieve a lot of stress. So think always that people can't read your mind, and you really need to discuss with them your needs and expectations and what you want. And then finally, similar to the physical, rest, sleep, and exercise is excellent for coping with your emotional strategies. When I have a difficult phone call or one that was very draining, I like to just get up and go walk outside on my back patio, just take a quick break, at lunch, take a long walk. Walks and exercise or just fresh air are great for me for helping relieve that emotional stress. So when you feel stressed out, one of the suggestions I would do is list these three types of stress: your situational, physical, and emotional, or list of three, and then go ahead and just do a writing exercise where you write down what is stressing you out in each of those things. Because sometimes we don't even know what's stressing us out, and without knowing what's stressing us out, it's hard to address them. And once we know what they are, then we can build some coping strategies around those different things. Are you doing okay out there? It's a little weird doing it this way. I'm getting used to it, but there's not a whole lot of interaction. The next thing I want to talk about, thanks, Jenna. I'm glad everyone is doing okay out there. The next thing I want to talk about is difficult situations. We all have very difficult situations that come up in our life. And there's three phases to dealing with difficult situations, at least in this model. There's lots of models out there, as I said before, but at least in this model. And so we're just going to go through these three different phases and just think about how, when you have difficult situations, how this might apply. So the first phase when you have a difficult situation is looking at change. Can you change what you're doing? This is about what you can do, not about what someone else can do. Because You're the one dealing with the situation. Learn to respond instead of reacting to a situation. Look to see what you might be able to do to change that situation with that that goal of working on forgiveness and letting go of resentment. What can you do yourself to initiate change? And a lot of times, you might want to kind of dig in your feet and say, I don't want to change. It's the other person needs to change. Well, the other person, you're not responsible for them. You're only responsible for yourself. And so I would also encourage that by you looking at a situation and looking at what you can change, that the other person or the situation in general might respond in kind to your own actions. So that's the first thing you do. You give it a try. That's all you can do. All you can do is try to see if change works, or if it doesn't work for you, or if you feel dissatisfied after an attempt to change. If you feel dissatisfied, if it's not working, you've given it some time, you move on to phase 2, which is accepting, which is working to accept the situation. It doesn't mean that you like the situation. It doesn't mean you approve of the situation or even agree with what is happening, but you learn to stop struggling against the reality of the situation. And sometimes that's the best you can do, is just stop struggling against the reality of the situation and learn to accept it. Some things just are the way they are. That's a big ask sometimes, but sometimes that is the best way to deal with the situation, or at least the next way to try. And you just try this for a while. You try to accept the situation. If the situation still is unacceptable, giving it some time, then you move on to phase 3. Phase 3 is about leaving. So you tried to change yourself. You hope maybe there was change in the other party. You tried to accept the situation to see if you could just let it be what it is. You've learned from the situation. By trying to change and trying to accept the situation, you learn from the situation, but you may still not be able to tolerate the situation. Then it's an appropriate time to start planning to leave the situation. In some instances, this is just, changing who you work with, or how you work with someone, or maybe deciding that a particular job you've been given or task isn't appropriate and you need to ask to have it changed. Or it may, in some cases mean actually leaving a job. But the first phase is this planning to leave, not actually leaving. Sometimes we have that urge when something is going really bad just to get up and leave right away. But it's really important that the first step about if you feel like you may need to leave the situation, in whatever way that actually means, you plan it first. You get some kind of support system in place. You have a plan. You be really open and honest why this isn't working, and you may need to leave and create an even bigger change in this change within the situation. I think by being honest and expressing that to, if it's just a task you've been given, to your supervisor, or if you're a supervisor to one of your employees, or directly to a person, if it involves a person directly, that in itself may create the change. It may loop back to phase 1, and you may get change in the other party involved. That's why you just don't leave right away, but you plan and you get everything in place in the support system. And in the end, if you do have to leave, you can be comforted by knowing that you did the best that you could do, that you took the time to work through the 3 phases. You took time to see if you could change. You took time to see if you could accept the situation. And the best result in the end was leaving. And so you didn't just jump to I want to leave this whole situation, or get completely flustered and not be able to try these different things. So those are 3 phases of how to deal with a stressful situation. Very quickly, I'm then going to move on to, if no one has any questions, 10 tips for creating balance. These were taken from Patricia Hutchings. She works with the state in developing the managers training module. She may have gotten it from somewhere else, but since this is the place where I got it, I thought I would credit her. And some of these seem obvious and some not so obvious. I want you to think about these and see which ones you already do. Hopefully some of you do some of them already. And also, as an exercise, maybe for you to think about one or two that you may want to try out in the next week. I actually urge you and challenge you that for the rest of the week to choose one of these for balance. Online again is actually this listed out with a short explanation, so don't feel like you have to write these down. You can download it if you want. So number one is water, drinking lots of water. And I won't go into the many health benefits of drinking water, but it really helps your health and staying hydrated. And, it's kind of like a mini break when you drink water. Drink a lot of water and it forces you to take a longer break. Lots of great things about water. Second one is breathing. Taking a few deep breaths helps you oxygenate yourself. It helps you calm down and relax, kind of resets your thinking. I wish I would have written it down, but one of the managers last Friday actually shared a very quick breathing technique about, I think it was like breathe in the count of 3, hold for the count of 3, breathe out for the count of 3, something like that. But there are different ones. Square breathing. Thank you, Jenny. Maybe you could type in there the number of breaths because I don't remember exactly how many it was. So, but several folks do that. Just take a moment to breathe. Listening to music, whether it's in the background while you work or while you take a break, very relaxing, de-stressing, staying balanced. One thing I did not know, but it has been shown in studies that if you play background music, Baroque music, specifically Baroque music, in the background, it helps you work more efficiently. Don't know much about that, but that's what I read, and they quoted a study. So if you really want to work more efficiently with music, try Baroque music. Opposite of that is silence. Just pausing and quieting the mind for a short bit can help you prepare for difficult situations. So that's really great to do before you have a difficult situation coming up. Or recover from hard conversations. Just take a moment to unplug. So silence is not just oral silence, but probably I would say visual silence. So walking away from your laptop, turning off your phone, not looking at your phone, but that real silence to quiet the mind. Jenny put in there 4 counts inhale, 4 counts hold, 4 counts exhale, 4 counts hold. Great, thank you, Jenny. Journaling. Writing a journal can help you understand more about what's happening. It can get out of yourself, kind of stuff that might be caught inside yourself. By writing it out, it kind of helps, move it out of you so you can get stuck thoughts out. And it can help you just understand yourself and what the processes are you're going through. Gratitude lists. A lot of people like to write gratitude lists. First thing in the morning, what you're grateful for, or in the evening, listing what you're grateful for. Just taking a few moments really helps create some balance. For some folks, in particular me, service work, helping other people through acts of service really helps put things in perspective, helps me stop thinking about all the things that are going on in my life, and it just helps bring some balance. So service is something that a lot of people like to do, including myself. Taking breaks. I believe this is one of the most important things. Said it before, and I'll say it again. Under time management, taking breaks allows yourself to just get micro rests in there. You should be doing them throughout the day. Folks talk about, I was just reading what you said, Shannon. I guess you were the person that talked about it last time. Taking breaks throughout the day is really helpful. Sitting all day, they have shown how bad that is. So just taking a quick break to walk around I know it works for me, especially when I'm writing letters or presentations. I can only work so long, and then I get up and walk around and come back, and it really helps me center and get work done. Inspirational reading, that's just having any kind of reading material around that lifts you up, inspires you. It could be, you know, a quote book or those calendars. It could be something with funny pictures, you know, sad cat photo books, anything like that. So that's something that will inspire you when you need a moment of inspiration. And then finally, touch points. So touch points are anything that you place around you to remind you what is important to you, that's grounding for you. So it could be pictures of your family. It could be stones, something that reminds you to take actions on your goals. I shared that I have here in my all my pencils and pens and stuff. I have this feather here that I got on a walk a long time ago that was really quite beautiful. And it just kind of reminds me of, like, okay, when I'm stuck in here at the desk, it reminds me about, you know, being out in nature, that I'll get back out there, I'll take a walk, and that really grounds me. So touch points is a really great one too. Any other questions on that? All right, then we will move on to time management after I have a sip of a warm beverage. Now a lukewarm beverage. So all of you probably don't have enough time, and you could probably list, and I won't ask you to list all the things you don't have time for. But I do have something that I all want you to take a little bit of time to do right now. And that is, I want you to take out a piece of paper, index card, something. Post-it note would be excellent, and a pen or a pencil or a marker. And I want you to write on it, I have all the time there is. I will give you a moment to do that. And I will give you a moment to ponder this phrase. Okay, hopefully you've all written it up. I want you all at some point to put it somewhere where you can see it every time you think you're running out of time and that you don't have enough time. I want you to write down or look at the phrase and say it in your mind, I have all the time there is, because there isn't a more truer statement. And I actually, I'm on this thing, I actually have it right here to remind me that I have all the time there is to get things done. So it's a little bit funny, but it's very true. So the question is how do we use that time there is to the most efficient? As I said at the beginning of this session, there are so many ways out there to do time management. So I'm just going to give you a couple hopefully interesting ideas for you that you might be interested in, and take what you will from it. I'm going to talk a little bit about what, when, how, and just say no. So what kind of work do you do? And I'm going to put these in kind of a traffic light way to look at it. So your green light work, if you look at all the things that you do, all your tasks, the green light work is what must be done, and that's your job. You are hired to do it, and you've got to do it. And that should take up about 80 to 90% of your job. Yellow light work. It's stuff that's got to be done, but you maybe weren't hired to do it. But it's probably work you enjoy doing. If you have changed jobs, if you got a promotion, it might be work that you used to do and you love doing, but now it's not part of what you do. That's okay work to do, but it probably should only be 10 to 15% of your time. And you know, you got better make sure that that's probably all right with your supervisor too. Orange light work, work that has to get done, and you might be really good at it, but it's not really your job, and you're not uniquely qualified for it. There's someone else can do it better than you, or at least as well as you. That should take up only like 5% of your time. And then the red light work is stuff that maybe doesn't have to be done, and it's definitely not what your job is. And you should never be doing that kind of work. So as we talk a little bit more about kind of putting these pieces we're going to talk about together, it's one of the things you want to do is think about these different color coding, or however you want to do it, to think about what is the green, the stuff that you have to be done, that has to be done and is your job, which should be most of your work, versus everything down to red light work, which is doesn't have to be done and not your job. So the next thing is to find when you do your best work, when your prime time is. For everyone, this is going to be a little bit different, but studies have shown that there is a pattern about when people do the best kind of work. I don't think you'll be surprised by this. So morning time is when you're most alert, probably when a lot of us have had our first cup of coffee, and hopefully we've had a good night of rest. The morning is when you should be doing your major decision making and very challenging tasks. For myself, this is when I am absolutely the most productive at putting together presentations, at, well, one thing I'm doing right now is writing job descriptions and some policies, things that are very intellectually challenging. The morning is the best time to do that. By the time you get to the early afternoon, you won't be surprised that your energy levels are dipping, and you should probably avoid those very challenging tasks, especially ones that require quick thinking and short-term memory. By late afternoon, your energy levels are at the lowest, and you can concentrate on reflective and creative tasks. I find that like both early and late afternoon are a good time for me to do some reading, to do some of my own studying, things where I'm just kind of absorbing information rather than trying to do, put information out. I try to go with the flow. It's when I tend to take a few more breaks, just to try to keep things going, move my energy around a little bit. But just realize that that's not the best time for you to doing those very challenging tasks. And in the evening, in case some of you do work in the evening, and there are a lot of night meetings, that's the best times to do routine or repetitive work. Often your energy levels are recovering in the evening, especially the early evening. And so if you're more on a flex schedule and you're one of those people that get some energy back in the evening, it might be time to go back and look at doing some of those more challenging tasks that you do early in the morning too. So what I would encourage you to do is kind of think about what your own prime time of work is. What kind of work you do, and we're gonna put that together with the different kind of tasks in a moment. So what we're gonna go into next is about well, we'll see. I'll let you. I won't spoil the surprise because it's not a surprise. The question you should ask every day to yourself, every morning, when you get into work, or if you want to do it before you go to work, is what do you need to do to accomplish have a successful day? What do you need to do that day? And yes, this is the not surprise. You make a to-do list. What do you need to do today to have a good day, to feel like you accomplished what you needed to do? This goes in hand with a master to-do list. I'm not going to go into detail about daily to-do lists and master to-do lists, but to-do lists really help, that whole idea about organizations. So first thing in the morning, you should figure out what you need to do that day and actually write them out. Because when you write them out in whatever system you want to use, you should use that green, yellow, orange, and red system to decide what you're going to do yourself, what you're going to delegate to someone else or pass on to someone else, and then what you're just not going to do because it's a red task. But if it's a green task, you know you need to do it. And if it's an orange or yellow task, thinking about, is this something that I'm going to end up doing, or is it something that I need to see if someone else can do? One of the hardest things to do, of course, is actually letting go of something and having someone else do it. But it really does, it will help you get your things done. And then what you do is you prioritize and schedule. So prioritizing them, you know, for some people, they find that really easy, what they should do. And then the scheduling part is getting back to when is your best time of day to do certain jobs. So for myself, I look at what I need to do for the day and I schedule those out. If I'm writing, you know, as I said, some policies that take a lot of mental work or presentations, I'll do those in the morning. I have usually like a call sheet of folks I want to call every day, and I do those in the afternoon because I know those are going to be more like longer conversations, and they're not going to be, you know, finding solutions for folks might be challenging, but at least talking to them is not challenging, or usually not challenging. And also I know, like, oh my gosh, I need to read up on certain new laws or things like that, or been assigned like trainings from the department that are online. I'll do those in the afternoon when I'm a little bit lower energy. So I will loosely schedule what I want to do when. It gets back to, you know, if you look at a lot of the different kind of time management modalities out there, almost all of them say do your biggest, hardest task first thing in the morning. And that gets back to probably when that's the best time for most people, when they have the most energy to do things. So prioritize and schedule. Little exercise here, prioritizing when everything is a priority. I have a little worksheet that's also in the downloadables. Some folks I've been working with doing, helping you do this, prioritize their work that are out there. And so it really works well because when I talk to people about when they're overwhelmed, and we say, well, what are your tasks? And we look at them. And then I ask, well, what's the highest priority? A lot of times they can't figure it out. It's all important, and it is all important. So this is just a little process to do that. And you basically compare 2 tasks at a time. And you're asked that question, if you could only do one of the tasks, which one would you do? It's not about what's more important than the other. It's about deciding which one you have to do if you could only do one. By going through this process, and this handout's a little bit more detailed, you figure out which task is your highest priority, and that's how you can prioritize them. So a lot of times you know which are the highest priorities, you know which are lower ones, but this actually process really helps with that. So I'd ask that you give it a try sometime if you really need to. So scheduling, I talked a little bit about that already, but schedule the right tasks for the right time. Scheduling queue time, do not disturb time. I highly suggest that. I've just learned about this recently. I think it's a really great idea. Do I actually do it? I'm starting to do it. But it's actually making time for yourself, especially when you have difficult, challenging tasks to do, where you purposely block out time and you turn off your phone, maybe you turn off your email. You let folks know that you'll be available, you know, in an hour or 2 hours, but you have quality time in order to do the work you do, and schedule that in so other people know that that's the time that you don't want to be disturbed and work on stuff. And that really, really can help you get stuff done. Scheduling email. This is only if email overwhelms you. So that happens for a few people, but if you do have that issue where email just sucks up all your time, schedule time for your email. If you're only dealing with a little email, dribbles in, you're probably okay. But there are people who need to schedule email time. So you only actually look and work through your email at set times during the day. Maybe it's 15 minutes every 2 or 3 hours. Maybe it's 3 times a day. But if you do have trouble with your email, schedule time for your email and ignore it the rest of the time. And lastly, I'm going to tell you to schedule your lunch. It's actually for 2 things. One, you need a break. And a lot of times if you don't schedule it, you don't take it, or you take it on the run. I mean, most people sit and eat lunch at their desk. I did that today because I was in between sessions. But I definitely try, and I encourage everyone to get away from your desk. And if you've been following the news, it's a big deal in France right now, because eating at your desk or even in your work building is currently illegal in France. They make you leave the building and get your lunch, and they're talking about changing that. There's getting a lot of pushback about that. And so I'm not going to say you should be totally like the French and have some wine at lunch, but definitely schedule your lunch out there. Get yourself a nice mental break, and actually taking some time away from your desk can even lead to even healthier eating habits, or take a walk and get that exercise. The last thing is learning to just say no. So the first thing is no multitasking. You probably, it used to be the big thing about multitasking. You see it in job descriptions, must have the ability to multitask. And studies have shown recently that that's a fallacy. You cannot multitask. Your brain can only do one thing at a time, and all that happens is you're switching from one task to another, perhaps so rapidly you don't even notice. But studies have shown too that you actually lose 30 to 40% productivity by multitasking, by trying to do multiple things at once and juggling multiple things. So you'll be much more efficient at your work by doing one thing at a time. So stop multitasking. Informational versus collaborative meetings. This was probably a little bit more of a discussion with the managers, but taking a look at what kind of meetings you're having, and do you need to have all the meetings? And certainly, we are being invited to more and more and more meetings all the time, because it's so easy to just send an email and say, here's the link, since we're not meeting in person, we're not traveling anywhere. But I would encourage you to think about, is a meeting for informational purposes, or is it truly collaborative? Collaborative meetings are great, and collaborative meetings allow you to interact and make decisions, create new things. But informational meetings often are best served by an email, though, as one manager said, people don't read their emails. But if you're just sharing information, do you really need to get together for just a purely informational meeting? Is that the best use of your time? Or can an information email be sent out? So just think about that. Saying no includes making that do not disturb sign for your queue time, your quality time. Just saying no, I need my time to myself, and carving that out to get things done. And lastly, red light tasks. Don't do your red light tasks. They're not your job. You're not the person for it. And so you should just say no to them. Of course, unless your supervisor tells you to do it, and then probably you have to do it. But you could remind them that it's not your job, and you're not the person to do it. So being able to say just say no is important. And that is all I have for that. We actually ended here a little bit early. So does anyone have any questions or comments? I encourage you to go to the website and download the presentation and the handouts that went with this, so you can look through them. I would encourage you to find one new thing to help you with balance of those 10 items that you can try. this week and to remember that you have all the time there is. So any questions or anything? So Donna says, I've heard it takes 15 to 20 minutes to recover to get back to your work after responding to an email. I haven't heard about that long, but I'm not surprised. That's one reason why you might want to think about scheduling your email for big chunks instead of breaking it up. And that's also the idea of not multitasking, by trying to answer email in between working on something else. Does anyone have any tips that they want to bring up or anything? Things they do, both for stress relief or saving or managing their time? Thank you, Jenna. About yes, I really actually think about scheduling out when to do your tasks. I do think that's really worked well for me in the past and currently. Jason talks about Google Calendars, keeping it organized. Any kind of calendar really helps. When I have big projects, I actually more on a personal calendar than the shared calendar for our department. I do schedule blocks, like what I want to work on a big project at a certain day. For instance, for this whole training week, I had planned out which days I was going to work on which presentation. It really helped. Shannon started Q time today and she likes it already. That's great. Well, if no one else has anything to say, we can end this. I'm glad you came. I hope you found it informative and you take something away. And also that if you can participate in any other sessions over the next few days, that'll be awesome. And feel free to share the materials from this presentation with other folks in your office or in the rest of your life. So thank you very much, and I will see some of you or all of you in other sessions, and I look forward to seeing all of you at some point in the future when we get to see each other in person. Have a great afternoon.